So this story happened when I was still living with my parents. My parents' house was pretty much a cabin out in a heavily wooded area in New England. If I'm being honest, it was a very isolated location, but also had beautiful views at the same time. Well, in New England, we would get hit with some of the biggest snowstorms, and I'm talking like anywhere from 10 to 16 inches sometimes. This one huge snowstorm we had was coming down hard, like my parents couldn't even leave their house to go to work. It was that bad. That also meant I didn't have to go to school, which, as a kid, was freaking awesome. This snowstorm was so bad that it didn't stop snowing even well into the night. At that time, I was up in my room playing on my Xbox when all of a sudden there was a knock at our front door. And for context, it was a little past midnight at this point. I heard the knock come from downstairs and listened closely, because there was no way in hell someone would be knocking at our door at midnight in one of the worst snowstorms that we were having. I opened my bedroom door and I saw both my parents making their way down the stairs to see who it could be. They flicked on the porch lights and opened up the front door. Nice. Shit. You're not right. On our front steps was this ginormous snowman, like he was massive nigh, came running down the stairs to have a closer look. My dad had this utterly perplexed look on his face as he stared at this towering snowman. And get this, there were no footprints anywhere that we could see. Granted, it was still snowing very hard at this point, but if someone had just made this snowman, I figured we should be able to see something, but we didn't. And like I said, our house was very isolated in the woods. Our closest neighbor was over a mile away, and even still, there was no way anyone would be driving in these conditions. My dad eventually shut the door because of how much snow was getting inside. He asked me if I had done this, but of course I didn't. Now get this. The next day, I guess my dad was calling around the area and speaking with neighbors, and two other neighbors also got a knock on their doors around midnight with a giant snowman at the front door. They also couldn't explain how it happened, and also reported not seeing any footprints. To this day, we still have no clue who or what was responsible for the snowman. If you guys have any guesses, I'm all ears. This story happened last year and I still can't explain it, and I'm still traumatized by it. A massive blizzard had hit our area. Roads were closed, cable lines were down, and many people lost power. It was pretty bad. Thankfully, our house still had power, and all we could do was hunker down and wait for the blizzard to pass. It was getting late at night, I want to say around 10:30, and I was up in my room trying but failing miserably at making funny TikTok videos. I was recording a skit when I heard this tapping on my window. Now mind you, my bedroom is on the second floor of the house. I heard the tapping on the window, but I figured it was just snow hitting it because the flakes were massive. I ignored the tapping and went on with making my TikToks. As I finally filmed a good scene, there was a second tap on my window, but this time much louder, almost like someone had hit it with an open fist. Now I was getting curious, and I was about to go check it out when I suddenly got a text message. It was from this weird number that I did not recognize, that had a bunch of 1s and 8s in it. I opened the text and read it. It said, "Look out your window." Now, I'll be honest, this text kind of freaked me out. But I went to my window that I heard the tapping coming from and looked out. I really couldn't see too much. The snow was falling so hard and it was dark outside. Between the tapping on my glass and the weird text message, I decided to go get my dad and tell him. When I did, my dad told me to stay put and he'll go outside and check it out. I watched as he went to the front door and into the blizzard. He came back 10 minutes later, covered in snow and freezing. But when he came back inside, he immediately started locking the front doors and checking the windows. Frightened by this, I asked my dad what he found or saw. My dad told me he found footprints leading from the woods up to our house, specifically to my bedroom. But that's not all. He pulled up his plain white bandana and said it was hanging from the bathroom window from outside. He showed me the bandana, and written on it was, Your son isn't safe." My dad called the police, but unfortunately, because of the conditions of the roads and the snow, an officer wasn't able to come out till the next day when everything was cleared up. The next day, when an officer was able to come out, my dad explained the tapping on my window, the unknown text and the bandana with the message on it. Ultimately, Lee, no one was ever caught for this, and quite frankly, I don't think the police took it that seriously. Now, whenever there's a blizzard, I'm haunted by the fact that whoever did this will return. Please stay safe. When I was a kid, I remember our town being hit by this massive snow blizzard, like it was coming down so hard that I remember thinking that I was living inside of a snow globe. Anyway, back when there was a snowstorm, that meant school was canceled. I think nowadays, when there is a snowstorm, kids now have virtual school, and I feel so bad for them. Since we didn't have school that day, that meant only one thing: going outside to play with your friends. It was me, Greg, and Harris. We all lived in the same neighborhood, and I had them all come out and meet me at my place. We did the typical kid stuff: build snowmen, have a snowball fight, and try to build big ramps for our sleds. Well, there was this huge hill behind my backyard that we were trying to ride our sleds down. When you got to the bottom of the hill, there was also a few houses down there. We were all down at the bottom of this hill, about to make our way back up to ride back down it again, when we heard a voice call out to us. We turned around, and there was this man standing at the back of one of the houses waving at us. He was calling out for us to come over to him real quick. None of us recognized who he was, but we thought maybe he had a question or needed help with something. So we trudged our way over to him. He was standing on his back porch, which was covered in snow, as was everything else. When we got close enough to speaking distance, we asked, "What's up?" And that's when I actually was able to get a good look at the guy. He was older, he had this huge bushy mustache, and was dressed in winter gear. When we got close enough, he looked at all of us and asked if we wanted to come inside for some hot chocolate. I'll be honest, as a kid who was freezing, it was very tempting to say yes and enjoy something hot. But also, we had no idea who this guy was. In fact, I had never seen him before. He kept eagerly asking us to come in and get warm, but he was too eager. Like, imagine a kid in a candy store. That was how he was acting. Me and my friends all looked at each other and knew the answer. I told the man, "Sorry, no." Once I said no, the man howled out in this angry, guttural yell. It almost didn't sound human. Then, without warning, he jumped off the porch and started sprinting at us. We all instantly started to book it back up the hill. And if you know anything about running in the snow, it's hard as hell. But we were literally running for our lives, so we didn't stop till we made it back to the top and back at my house. We sprinted inside, getting snow everywhere. But we didn't care. I went straight to my parents and told them that the neighbor at the bottom of the hill asked us to come inside and started chasing us after we said no. Here's where it gets absolutely bizarre. My parents immediately called the police. They told us that the house at the bottom of the hill had been vacant for over a year, and no one was living there. Police weren't able to do much because of the roads, and by the time they were able to come out, 2 days had passed. When they searched the house, they found empty food cans, beer bottles, and evidence that all pointed to a squatter. After that incident happened, I was no longer allowed to go anywhere near that house at the bottom of the hill. I'm a full-grown adult now, and I can't even imagine what would have happened if we accepted that man's invitation, or he had caught one of us while he was chasing us. People are the real monsters. Thanks for watching.